Recording in progress.
Testing.
Welcome, everybody. Today is Monday, May 5th. This is a regular meeting of the San Rafael City Council. Apologize for a few minutes late. I'll request the city clerk to call the roll.
Vice Mayor Bushy.
Present.
Councilmember Hill.
Present.
Councilmember Kurtz is absent. Councilmember Yadens Pilati.
Present.
Mayor Kate.
Present, there are 4 of us here this evening. We met in closed session. I invite the city attorney to report out.
Thank you, Mayor Kate. The council met in closed session and concluded the item that's listed as 2B, the 620 Canal Street discussion, and there was no reportable action as to that item. As to the first item listed under the closed session agenda, the 350 Marydale item, the council will be returning to closed session after the conclusion of the regular meeting this evening, and then I will report out whatever the results are from that aspect of the closed session at the next regular meeting on the 19th.
Thank you. So good evening and welcome, whether you're joining us in person or tuning in online. We are so glad to have you here. We like to start our meetings by recognizing our incredible city staff. You are the backbone of San Rafael. You work every single day to make our community running so smoothly. On tonight's consent calendar, there are several proclamations, and 2 are very specific to public service. One is Public Service Recognition Week, and the other is National Police Week. So it's only fitting that tonight I am sharing the winners of the Employee and Team of the Year for 2024. Employee of the Quarter and Team of the Quarter nominations are part of the ethos here at the City of San Rafael. It started in 1991, and from those recipients, the Employee of the Year as well as the Team of the Year are selected. So I'm delighted to share who the recipients are of this honor. And by the way, they already know this, so it's already been recognized internally. First, the Employee of the Year is Hector Carlos. He is our Code Enforcement Supervisor. Hector manages a wide range of challenging and sensitive cases, including business inspections, code violations, and building code violations. He demonstrates strong investigative skills, attention to detail, and a steadfast commitment to public safety and regulatory compliance. Thank you, Hector. We are so delighted that you're part of the San Rafael City staff, and congratulations on this honor. And the Team of the Year is the San Rafael Police Department Field Training Officer Team, consisting of Sergeant Robert Cleland, Sergeant Justin Graham, Sergeant Scott Ingalls, Corporal Rick Cuddy, Corporal Scott Brooks, Corporal Dennis Prince, Corporal Justin Schrader, Officer Joe Jordan, Officer Brian Patterson, Officer Chris Hanlon, and Officer Jennifer Gamble. These field training officers have gone above and beyond to ensure the success of the new officers, helping them to become competent solo officers and instilling in them a strong sense of officer safety and service-oriented mindset. This dedication is critical to our mission of providing excellent community safety. And I'll say they also translate community culture, and we know it is difficult to bring in additional first responders, and this is another way that shows San Rafael continues to be successful to bring in new folks. So congratulations to both Hector as well as the San Rafael Police Department Field Training Officer Team. We have the State of the City dinner next week, and they will be recognized publicly there as well. Before we start our business agenda, we like to include a land acknowledgement. This is in addition to the work that we do with the tribe on an ongoing basis. We thank the original caretakers of this land. San Rafael is traditionally home to the Coast Miwok people, many of whom today are tribal citizens of the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria, and we honor their continuing involvement in stewardship practices that benefit us all. Thank you. I will now turn to the city clerk, who can describe how people can participate in tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Kate. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube. For members of the public wishing to provide public comment, displayed on the podium and the projector is a timer to help you stay within your 2-minute time frame. You're invited, though not required, to introduce yourself and say what part of San Rafael you live in, or if you're from outside of San Rafael. We do offer closed captioning for this meeting on Zoom. You can select the live transcript button to enable this feature. Community members may request reasonable accommodations if they'd like to provide public comments virtually. For more information about that, or if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, you can email me at city.clerk@cityofsanrafael.org. Thank you.
Thank you. We have city manager and council member reports, and I will start with the city manager.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. We have a proclamation on the consent calendar tonight for Mental Health Awareness Month, and I just wanted to take a couple of moments to highlight the opportunity to remind us all about our mental health is just as important as our physical health. It impacts everyone, not just as individuals or families or community and schools. I recently heard something on a Simon Sinek podcast that really stuck with me. He suggests that we reframe mental health as mental fitness, that shift in language helps to reduce the stigma around seeking help and encourages a more proactive and positive approach. Just like we go to the gym to stay physically fit, we can build habits and routines that support our mental fitness through therapy, mindfulness practices, and rest. It's not just about crisis care, it's also about prevention. So here in San Rafael and across the county, we've seen the real impacts of mental health challenges increasing. I would say since COVID, our public safety personnel, outreach workers, and community partners are supporting more individuals in crisis than ever. I want to take this moment to thank all of them for doing this really important human work every day. We're incredibly lucky to have a partner in People Services, Petaluma People Services, who provide our mobile mental health services through the city's SAFE team. I just wanted to take a moment to share the statistics on how much work they've been doing out in the community. Since July of 2024, SAFE has responded to 2,200 calls for service. And for approximately half, 50% of those are calls for service for unhoused individuals, and the other 50% are for housed residents in San Rafael. So really honoring that work and keeping it in our heart this month. We have a few community events coming up. CAL FIRE is hosting an event on May 9th from 10 to 1 in recognition of Wildfire Prevention Week. That event will highlight our work to create defensible space, harden homes, and build a wildfire-resistant community. There'll be remarks from Councilmember Kurtz as well as County of Marin Supervisor Mary Sackett. There's also a free emergency preparedness workshop. It's primarily for caregivers, but it's also open to the public. It's the Marin Center of Independent Living has a disaster preparedness workshop Saturday, May 10th from 11 to 2. It's going to be at B Street Community Center. Free lunch, and the first 100 attendees receive a Go Bag backpack. So we also have an event coming up. The city is sponsoring a bicycle and pedestrian master plan open house on Wednesday, May 14th. That's from 5 to 7, also at the B Street Community Center. So be able to walk through different stations and learn more about that plan and opportunity for community to give input. And then lastly, we have May Madness coming up. So we have the car cruise is on Friday, May 9th at 6 o'clock, departs from Terra Linda High School at 6 p.m. to parade through the downtown. And then the next day on Saturday, even more car show and parade from 12 to 6 downtown. Music, food, all that good stuff, and a parade through downtown at 5 p.m. And if you want more information about that event, you can go to maymadnesssanrafael.com.
Thank you. I'll turn to my colleagues to report out on any recent meetings. Vice Mayor Bushy.
Thank you. While I was out of town, I was able to attend one meeting, and that is the quarterly meeting of the Marin Water Managers. It's overseen by Supervisor Rodini. great news that all of the water supply is looking good, although that's not lulling anyone into to lose their focus on drought management planning. So they're continuing to work on that. There's an interesting discussion of new requirements for backflow devices and very expensive and lots of challenges across particularly the smaller agencies. So interesting developments there. This morning, along with Councilmember Lorenz Grotti, we attended the Marine Transit Board meeting. Interesting report. We got the first look at the next year's operating and capital budget. Very concerning. 17% of the revenue needed to meet the costs is coming from reserves. The forecast over the next several years includes depleting all of the reserves. So this was our first look. We'll be getting a more formal budget. We requested more additional strategic analysis and forecasting of what the implications are for this in the out years and what our plans are going to be going forward. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Lorenz Galati.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I attended a couple of weeks ago the CCAP or Climate Change Action Plan quarterly meeting at the same time that we were celebrating the San Francisco Climate Week. And it was focused on sea level rise. So we were able, it was very well attended at BioMarine. Corey Bitov did a great job with, what's the name? Yes, but Miles Smith from Sustainable San Rafael. They were coordinating this. We had two different panels with some students. Kate Hegeman did an amazing presentation on sea level rise and bringing her expertise. And we were able to have not only our residents, but also people from other cities and other counties coming to learn more about that. So it was amazing. On April 29, I attended a meeting with both the Canal, and we had some of the departments from the city. The police department was there, the chief was there, Captain Leon, and we also had code enforcement, and because we were talking about illegal street vendors, and also some of the safety around the canal. So it was very well attended. Stand-up room only, like people had to kind of like squeeze in, but and that shows the commitment from our neighbors in the canal and how much they care about the community and all the work that they put in there. On May 2nd, it was the 2025 Canal Promise or the Partnership Summit organized by Marine Promise. Mayor Kay was there as well, and we had a lot of, our city manager was there, and we had representatives from the city as well. And it was a collaboration between our city, the county, a lot of different nonprofit organizations, and is to create that canal, a promise, dream, and really start setting up priorities and how we can work together to make a difference, to move the needle. On Saturday morning, I was at the wildcare groundbreaking ceremony. Mayor Kate was very skilled using the shovel, did like a really nice speech on the groundbreaking ceremony. They are about 77% of the funding, so they still have a little bit more, a couple more millions to go, but it's going to be an amazing facility, and it's a gift to our city, really. That afternoon, I attended the Canal Alliance Feria Comunitaria Nuestro Canal, Nuestro Futuro, organized by Canal Alliance. Probably there were like over 300 people. There were like so many departments from our city. So again, police department was there, fire department, about recruiting. There was also like public works, library and recreation, and also parking. And then we had like, there were like other partners like Transportation Authority of Marine, Marine Transit, the Discovery Museum, talking about sea level rise, about a lot of different plans and opportunities in the canal. So it was amazing actually to see everybody coming. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it, because this morning it was Marine Transit with Councilmember Bushy, and then MC Clean Energy Executive Committee at noon. So yes.
Thank
Busy.
you. Councilmember Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Kate. I have one item to report, and that is last Sunday, April 27th, I served on a panel for the Youth Town Hall held at the Marin Civic Center. I was the only council member there. All the mayors and vice mayors were there, except ours were otherwise occupied, so I got to go in their stead. I wanted to give a special thanks to the Student Election Ambassadors Program, SEAP, S-E-A-P, who this is their second year running this, as well as the Elections Department, as well as the League of Women Voters who were there in support of the students. Also there was Linda Roberts, our Registrar of Voters from Marin County, who has announced that she will be retiring at the end of June of this year after over a decade of service in the role. This is one of those roles that during the pandemic saw a lot of upheaval. And she, I think, stood forth on behalf of the community to ensure that we had safe, fair elections through, again, a lot of upheaval at the national level. So I wanted to give a personal thank you to her as she's departing. Thank you.
Thank you. I know Councilmember Uransky already talked about Earth Week, but I want to give a shout out to the Business Improvement District, who together with Corey Bidoff and our sustainability folks had a downtown cleanup. And there was quite a few people, about 40 people showed up and literally cleaned the downtown. Downtown Streets team was there as well. So that was part of the Earth Day activities that were here in San Rafael. You already mentioned the Wild Care groundbreaking, but I did want to clarify, it's going to be in the same location where it already is, because I was telling people I was at the groundbreaking, they kept saying, where is it going? It's temporarily over by the Civic Center for the next 2 years, but it will be back at its original current location, which is across behind Albert Park, across from Parkside. In groundbreaking, I think it's a new place, so excited about that. Yesterday, Councilmember Kurtz and I participated in the San Rafael Girls Youth Softball opening day, although they already had opening day, but it was a really rainy day, so they rescheduled it for yesterday. There was a parade, and I want to give a shout out to the police department that helped make sure that the intersections were safe. We also had police escorts, and the floats or the trucks were decorated, and we paraded to Bernard Hoffman Field, and then both Councilmember Kurtz and I were able to say a few words to all these incredible female athletes, softball players in our community, so it was fantastic. And then this afternoon, I'm part of Transportation Authority of Marin's ad hoc committee on the 101-580 update. And just so you know, they're looking at 3 alternatives, and they're in the environmental review right now. So I'm not sure when they'll come back to the public to give an update. Probably this fall as well. They'll have the environmental review done. So thank you as always for the work that happens outside of the council meeting. I think it's important to remind the community of all the great things that are going on and how they can participate, including giving any public comment on any of the reports that you just heard. If you'd like to comment on the city manager's council member reports, now's your opportunity. Not seeing anyone, I will move along to the consent agenda. Are there any items that the council would like to hold from the consent calendar? Okay, I will open up public comment on the consent calendar. That's items 4A through 4G. If you'd like to speak to any of those moments or any of those items, now is your chance. Not seeing anybody, I will close the public comment. And could I have a motion on this item, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Councilmember Uransky.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 4-0. We have a few public hearings tonight, and the first one is the local responsibility area fire hazard severity zone maps. And I'm sure San Rafael Fire Department is going to show up and present this. Welcome, Kate. Welcome, Quinn.
Good evening, Mayor Kate, City Council members. My name is Kate Anderson. I'm the Wildfire Program Manager at San Rafael Fire Department, and I'm honored to speak to all of you tonight and everybody else in the room about the Fire Hazard Severity Zone maps, quite a mouthful, that have been introduced by CAL FIRE and will impact San Rafael. This is to introduce an ordinance, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background. So a few key points before we dive in. I want to cover what these maps are, why do they matter to the city of San Rafael, and then what is the city's role. Diving in big picture, these fire hazard severity maps have been mapped statewide by CAL FIRE. They designate 3 different hazard levels throughout the state. Those are very high, high, and moderate. And what you can see here is a lot of different colors. The red is very high, orange is high, and then the yellow is moderate. There's also some gaps, those white areas that might be the LRA, which is local responsibility area. That's what covers San Rafael as a municipality. And then the other blank areas that you see are federal responsibility areas. That's where we see a lot of our national forests, not covering San Rafael and our area down here. Brief history of why these maps came to be. I'm going to start with where we are now. In 2025, why we're just seeing these maps in San Rafael is that CAL FIRE has been mandated to map the moderate and high zones in addition to the very high zones that have previously been designated for local responsibility areas. This really started back in the 1980s when we were starting to have a lot more destructive fires that were coming into our communities, and the state found a need to identify these areas in state responsibility areas to get a handle on where hazards are and to start urban planning better. Through the 1980s, this really started to build steam. And then in 1991, we had the Oakland Hills fire, very devastating, and that's when the very high zones were designated in local responsibility area, where there was a lot of damage and that hadn't been identified before. Moving about 35 years into the future to now, we're seeing these zones mapped in all of SRA in all those 3 different categories. Here's what San Rafael's map looks like. As I mentioned, we don't have any very high zones. We hadn't before and we don't now. What we have primarily are the moderate zones and a little bit of that high in the area of the Terra Linda Sleepy Hollow Divide. And what you see here in the dashed line, that's the San Rafael city boundary. So I also want to illustrate how these maps are contiguous throughout the county as well. So hazard versus risk. This is a question that we get asked a lot about. I really want to reiterate that these CAL FIRE maps identify levels of fire hazard and not risk. Hazards are physical conditions on the ground that create the likelihood of a fire occurring and the expected fire behavior. And these maps are intended to last a long while, so over decades. So we can use them as a planning tool into the future. What they don't consider are the short-term modifications like fuel reduction projects, defensible space that homeowners might do, and home hardening aspects that really get into the building code. Risk is more of the potential damage or an impact that a wildfire may cause under existing conditions that include a lot of the modifications that I just mentioned. I want to reiterate one more time, these hazard maps are not a structure loss model and they're not risk maps. They're hazards only, and insurance companies, and we get this question a lot, insurance are looking at risk models, and there's nothing in these CAL FIRE maps that they don't already have access to. They have their own models. And so these aren't contributing directly to insurance impacts to our homeowners and our residents. What does take into account of risk are the wildland urban interface maps that we have. The city has adopted these, and the wildland urban interface really defines an area where human development meets wildland areas. So we do see a lot of this in San Rafael. We have a lot of open spaces where there's a transition from our residential development into those areas. The fire hazard severity zone maps, as I mentioned multiple times, they're looking at hazards only. So we may have wildland urban interface overlapping those fire hazard maps, but we may not have WUI in the same area where there's multiple zone designations. It only occurs where there's development. So coming back to that map, I've overlaid our wildland urban interface. That's that dashed polygon that you see. And then the lime green is areas that we've done our own fuel reduction. So we've already identified where we find the most hazardous areas and that intersection of where it meets development. CAL FIRE is a pretty complex and thorough model that I'm not going to dive into the specifics of right now, but they do take into a lot of factors, including fire history in the area, the vegetation type, flame length. It does incorporate ember spread and ember models, as well as the topography of an area and climate. So what's the city's role in this? We didn't create these maps, but we can request changes, which is an elevation in the designations or additional areas that we may think need to be included in the maps. We have reviewed these maps, and at this point, no changes requested. And we've noted that the designations align with our WUI, our wildland urban interface boundary, and pretty well with the topography as we understand it. This is a pretty busy graphic, so I've highlighted what matters to San Rafael. What changes with these designations? We now have high zones in San Rafael. And so the biggest thing that impacts is residential resale inspections. That would add about 2,000 properties are now eligible for that if you decide to sell your property. There's also the expansion of 7A building requirements. That's more the home hardening elements, extended from our wildland urban interface boundary that I just showed to now all of the high designation areas. And then our defensible space requirements are already citywide, and this isn't impacted directly. We have made these maps available on our website, and we've also promoted them and solicited comment at multiple community events. We have received a few public comments that were focused on insurance coverage, which is why we wanted to cover that, and individual property designations. And our next action is to introduce the ordinance, and May 19th, have the option to adopt if we choose to move forward.
Thank you, Kate. I'll see if there are any questions. Vice Mayor.
A quick question about what's not there. I understand that the very high designation was removed. How do you feel about that?
So the San Rafael has never had a very high designation. So what really switched in the history of it is previously CAL FIRE was only required to map very high in LRAs, which is why San Rafael's never seen them before, because we never met that designation. Now their requirement is also to map moderate and high, which is why we are now seeing it and why we now have legal requirements to adopt them at a minimum of what the state has determined, with the option to potentially elevate them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hill, any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay.
I asked questions and they were integrated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Yerens-Gulati.
Yes, so thank you so much for the report. So you saw the map where with all the lines and all the work that you have done already. And I noticed, and maybe it's because they are not part of this update, but like, for instance, you have the unincorporated. So are they also working on that? Or because if you are working and then they don't, then, kind of like it fits the purpose?
Yeah, so the polygons that are in green that we mapped are San Rafael managed mitigation projects. So as part of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority and the Measure C dollars, there are many more projects happening. But these are the ones that we've had a direct handle in.
Okay.
So that's, I think, the short answer.
Okay,
Is that-
great. So that doesn't mean that they are not working on.
Correct. And this is just large scale projects. This is not incorporating individual property defensible space actions or anything like that. So and the reason, and Kate kind of referred to these are hazard maps, and the reason the state doesn't incorporate the mitigation measures into how they do that is it's very similar to floodplain mapping. So even though we can do things that kind of change the floodplain map, it's just a likelihood of incident over a period of time. And that's a very similar kind of logic that they're using in this.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And my second question is, so you mentioned that we could request modifications from the map, and this is like a state mandate without funding. So what would be the advantage to us?
To request a modification.
Yes.
Yeah, so we don't see a large one, partly because we already have citywide vegetation standards. And so one of the potential implications of these maps is that the state is developing what they're referring to as Zone 0 regulations that we don't really expect to know what they are for months, possibly not until the end of the year. And right now, the implication is those are going to apply to very high areas. And so in some places, it might make sense to request, you want to elevate it so that those state laws then apply locally. But because we already have citywide vegetation standards, we don't feel like we'd be gaining a lot by that. And to be frank, don't necessarily have the resources to model above and beyond what the state has already done in a hazard sense. So that's one of the reasons we haven't requested modifications, and we can only ask for higher elevations. So functionally, it would only be adding more code, adding more restriction, which we can do without these maps, right? So at council's direction, if you want us to go a different way in terms of stricter standards, we can do that. We don't necessarily need these maps to do it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm building on Councilmember Micah's questions around the components of the map. So I understand the topography part. We can't change that, but we can change the vegetation fuel reduction. So how does that ever get incorporated? So we're doing this, I think we're the only county in California, maybe the nation, that have taxed ourselves to do this work. So how does that ever get manifested in here? Because it's kind of, that almost doesn't fit with all the other components. Ember flow, hazard winds, like those I think are consistent over time, but vegetation reduction can change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of that is because they don't want to have to update these every couple years, which vegetation does change, right, on a seasonal basis. And they're looking at weather and patterns, and I would say where it really does and where our work in terms of how we map our mitigation measures really shows up as people insurance. And that's why people have kind of asked us, do these really matter? And the answer is the insurance companies already had data way more nuanced than this, and that is updated with things like fuel modeling, LIDAR. We are also entering an updated community wildfire prevention plan, CWPP process. It's a 5-year cycle that starts again this year, which will include updated mapping, fuel modeling, et cetera. So those mitigation measures will be incorporated into that as well.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Thank you. There might be additional questions that the council has after we hear from the community. If you would like to comment on this item, we would welcome your public comment. Not seeing anyone who wants to comment on this item, I will bring it back for commentary and then a motion. Vice Mayor, any comments on this item?
Excellent, excellent report, excellent recommendations. I support the recommended outcome.
Thank you. Any other additional comments? Councilmember Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. While this is mandated for us to contemplate these hazard severity zones, I just want to take a step back and put where San Rafael and Marin County has been and where it's going. You know, I think of all folks in this room, Quinn Gardner has been here the longest to see the journey from vision to in the middle of inception. There's so many, this is a permanent condition of continuing to prevent and be prepared. So to me, this is just one more step on the map where the state, I feel, is starting to take more formal action uniformly. I think that's to the benefit of all Californians. But I'm proud to be serving now. But as Mayor Kate often says, us as electeds, we're here pretty temporarily. But the community will be living with these changes. So thank you, Quinn and the department, for supporting this work. Kate, thank you very much. And I'll look forward to supporting the motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Micah, any comments?
Yes, I wanted to echo all that, and I feel we are in very good hands. I think the Zone 0, as when we are thinking about vegetation management, but there's also requirements like if you have a fence touching your house and it's made out of wood, you have to change it and make it like metal, and that's like $3,000, and not everybody can afford that. So I think we'll just be looking again at what's happening at the state level, but knowing that they always have, we don't have any funding attached to it. I don't know how easy it's going to be implementing Zone Zero in our community, especially for disadvantaged, underserved communities. So, but thank you so much. Great report. Thank you. Great work.
And I concur, great report, and appreciate you, Quinn, for having been there since the beginning, Kate, for picking up the work and just running with it, and your leadership, Chief Roman. Obviously, it's been brought forward in the state of California for the terrible fires down in Southern California, but we've been doing the work here, and we've been doing the work here well before that happened. And I know this is just a piece of this larger puzzle. And we also want to give kudos to the community who is doing their own work on their own pieces of property. You alluded to that, Quinn. That is so critical. It doesn't show up in this map, but it is absolutely critical to ensuring that we do not have a wildfire within our borders by people doing their work. So thank you for bringing this forward. And I would, Vice Mayor, would you like to go ahead and make a motion on this item, please?
I move that we introduce the ordinance, waive further reading of the ordinance, and refer to it by title only.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Councilmember Eden Scolati.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 4-0, and I invite the city clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Centerville to designate fire hazard severity zones and local responsibility areas.
Thank you. Thank you. We have another public hearing. This one is on the purchasing policy and public works contracts policy updates. I see Director Navazio joining us. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Kate, members of the council. Again, so this item actually contemplates two separate ordinances, although related. As noted, the first is a proposed update to Chapter 2.55 of the city's municipal code, which is the purchasing policy. And then a second item related to recommendations to amend Chapter 11.50 of the municipal code, which is the public works contract policy. There's some background information in the staff report. I will essentially highlight the changes that are being proposed. And I would say both of these are coming to the council in the context of, number one, the need and desire to periodically review our policies, particularly financial policies, and procurement's a big part of that, on a more or less an annual basis. And also the current update and the timeline for bringing it to you with this meeting would be that if approved, the changes would be in effect essentially at the start of the new fiscal year, which is also the timeline we're working on to implement our new Tyler Munis financial system. And so because the design and configuration of that includes ensuring that we've got internal controls consistent with the policies, this makes sense to look at this time. I think the purchasing policy, I would say, was last updated in 2018. The proposals for amendments that are before the council this evening are fairly limited in scope. The first one would be a recommendation to increase the city manager's current contract authority from the $75,000 level to a $100,000 level. We can speak to the rationale for that recommendation. So concurrent with that recommendation, we would be increasing the threshold from informal to formal bid with it from 75 to 100,000. So all formally awarded contract would still come to the city council for award. That's how that is structured. In terms of a little more nuanced implementation, the other two other changes is ones that we've essentially already implemented administratively, but we would be codifying them with the ordinance, and that is to clarify that the application of the award authority applies how it applies to change orders, so that we're looking at the cumulative amount of the original contract and the change order. So even small change orders, it would bring the new not to exceed amount over a threshold would come to the council for approval. And also clarifying under the section in current policy that requires that there are available unencumbered budget appropriations, AKA funding available to award the contract. We're proposing language that clarifies for situations where we're awarding a multi-year contract, where the funding is awarded on an annual basis by the council with the budget, that there's language in the policy and then in our standard contract templates to clarify that, you know, the out years of the contract is contingent on subsequent appropriations. So that's different than, say, a construction contract where we might have the funding all up front for a multi-year contract as opposed to an annual janitorial contract or an annual tree maintenance contract. So we want to make sure that that contract isn't binding on the council, but the contract's contingent on the funding provided by the council through the annual budget process. That pretty much covers the purging policy. I would note that the recommendation to increase the city manager authority from 75 to 1,000 to 100,000, kind of two, I think, complementary rationales. The first is that was last updated in 2018, and with the 28% CPI for the Bay Area, if it was just to be kept up with inflation, it's right about $96,000, $97,000. So kind of in the rounding. We've also revisited where city manager authority is with other cities in the area. And at least for those of our population size, I think the question was, and our complexity. There's not too many cities with the complexity of San Rafael, but this is actually in line, if not even on the low end of cities that have gone to $100,000, $125,000, $150,000 authority. I could add that the second ordinance that speaks specifically to the public works contract policy, that was last amended in 2023, essentially to conform to the bidding and contract provisions that are provided in the state's Uniform Public Works Contract Act. And that's what establishes the dollar thresholds. The only change that we're proposing this evening for the council to consider is number one, update the policy to state that the contract award authority under the city's policy, council is delegating that to the city manager. The current language is that it goes to the public works director. So this is really kind of just a little bit of a language cleanup. Doesn't really have too much of a change in practice, but we're ensuring that the city manager ultimately has the ultimate authority on these contracts. And then we're also adding to the public works contract policy the language about the requirement for available funding in place at the time of contract award, with the clarification that for multi-year contracts, particularly maintenance contracts that are awarded under that policy, that those are contingent on ongoing budget appropriations provided through the annual budget process. Should the council act on this evening, it's back before the council for your second reading at the May 19th meeting, takes effective 30 days after that. And so it aligns nicely with the work we're doing to update these for next fiscal year. Take any questions?
Thank you, Director. See if there are any questions. Vice
No.
Mayor.
No questions. I'll have comments though.
Okay. Any additional questions? Any questions? Okay. Not seeing any questions. I will open up the public comment. If you'd like to comment on either of these two policy updates, we'd welcome your thoughts. Not seeing anyone who wants to comment. I will close the public comment and bring it back for comments. Vice Mayor, you said you had comments. Go ahead.
I do have comments on, I love this stuff. This is so exciting and no, it really is. This, no. This is it. This is it. This is good government in action. We can write all those spreadsheets and talk about it and pick out words, but this is what it looks like. somebody's paying attention to the details, thinking ahead and aligning things with, so that we're ready for the next, fiscal year. Well done. I think this is great. I'm delighted that you brought this forward and that you're monitoring these sorts of issues and that it just speaks well for the entire management of the city that, these general housekeeping things are being handled. So I will be delighted to move the motion, the matter when I guess there's two of them, when it's time.
Thank you. Great commentary, great comments. Any additional thoughts? Yeah, Councilmember Hill.
Yeah, just building on the vice mayor's comments, and how this, and I would comment maybe further that what this allows staff to do is to move with more efficiency at the trust and discretion of and direction of the city manager in the implementation of our policies and directives. So I think this moves us more to a more efficient future, and based on how CPI will increase, I imagine we might have this conversation again in about 3 or 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Micah, any comments?
I share my, your enthusiasm, my gratitude. So thank you. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Vice Mayor, you were so enthusiastic in your comments. Why don't you go ahead
Ready to
and
go.
make a
Move that we introduce the purchasing policy ordinance, waive further reading of the ordinance and refer to it by title only.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Bushy,
Aye.
Councilmember Hill,
Aye.
Councilmember Eden Scolati,
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 4-0. Madam City Clerk, if you could read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Santa Fe amending Chapter 2.55 of the Santa Fe Municipal Code entitled Purchasing Policy to update the City of Santa Fe's purchasing policies and procedures.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Second motion, I move that we introduce the Public Works Contract Policy Ordinance, waive further reading of the ordinance and refer to it by title only.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Bushy,
Aye.
Councilmember Hill,
Aye.
Councilmember Eden Scolati,
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 4-0. Madam City Clerk, if you could read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Santa Fe amending Chapter 11.50 of Title 11 of the Santa Fe Municipal Code titled Public Works Contract Policy.
Thank you. That concludes that agenda item. Thank you so much, Director. We have one final public hearing, and that's reporting on vacant positions. And I see Director Sanchez has joined us. Welcome.
Waiting for it to load. Just a sec. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Marissa Sanchez, Human Resources Director. I'm here tonight to provide an update on the City of San Rafael's vacancy rates and to present our compliance with the new state legislation, Assembly Bill 2561. The purpose of this report is twofold. First, to provide you with an overview of current vacancy rates across city departments, and second, to fulfill our new obligation under this Assembly Bill, to report on vacancies in a public forum at least once per fiscal year. Assembly Bill 2561 was passed to increase transparency around local government staffing. It requires cities like ours to track and publicly report vacancy data, how many open positions we have, what we're doing to fill them, and how they impact public services. The broader goal is accountability, helping cities like San Rafael not only track this information, but also use it to improve hiring practices and service delivery. The legislation emphasizes the importance of being transparent with the public about staffing challenges and impacts. As of March 31 of this year, the city's overall vacancy rate was approximately 8%. This reflects consistent effort by human resources and the hiring departments to actively fill positions. Importantly, no individual bargaining unit exceeded the 20% vacancy threshold that would trigger additional reporting requirements under the law. And you may remember, as recent as last year, what our vacancy rate percentages look like just before the approval of our new MOUs. So it's just something to think about. They have gone down quite a bit. This table here breaks down vacancy rates by bargaining group. As of March 31st, SEIU currently has the highest rate at 14%, but again, none are at or above the 20% trigger. Most groups have very low or no vacancies at all, which is wonderful. It's a positive sign of staffing stability here at the city. So we're very excited about that. To meet our recruitment goals, we've been actively posting positions online and on social media to reach a wider audience. We've implemented new internal vacancy tracking systems, are reviewing the hard-to-fill roles, and continually refine our strategies to ensure that we attract diverse and qualified candidates. Now, while we've made good progress, we still face challenges. Retention is critical. We want to keep the staff we worked so hard to recruit for. Budget pressures and competition from other agencies, especially for roles in public safety and technical areas like engineering, continue to be hurdles. But even with these challenges, the city is optimistic about the future and remains focused on strengthening recruitment, expediting our hiring practices, and supporting staff to maintain the service levels that we so desperately need. Looking ahead, we're focusing on 4 strategic priorities: increase in our outreach, continuing to monitor how vacancies affect services, improving the efficiency of our hiring process, and giving the human resources team the support and training they need to be successful in this endeavor. This report is for informational purposes only, so there's no direct fiscal impact. Our finance director will be happy. I'm not asking for any money at this time. Tonight, we're simply asking the council to receive this report in compliance with this assembly bill. We will continue to provide updates annually or more frequently if necessary to ensure transparency and accountability. So thank you for your time and attention, and I will take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director Sanchez. Vice Mayor, any questions? Councilmember Micah, question? Councilmember Hill, go ahead.
Thank you, Director Sanchez, for this report. I have one question, which is going back, how would you characterize how bad it got for us with respect to vacancies? Because you didn't refer to a number, but I do recall it was very high across many departments.
It was very high, and I did pull some of our vacancy data over the past 4 years just to give you a little perspective. Our mid-manager group, back in fiscal year 2021, their vacancy rate was just under 19%. We're currently at 8%. Our WCE group, which is our engineering group, was as high, the vacancy rate was as high as 55% back in fiscal year 22-23. I'm happy to say we are at 0 right now. Our engineers we are fully staffed, so we're super excited about that. Our police group, remember our police association, was high as 16% in fiscal year 22-23. We're at 5% right now. So we're really making progress. Our fire, SRFA, our fire group, was as high as 19% back in fiscal year 21-22, and we're at 1% right now. So we're very, very excited about that, but we have to continue to stay on top, right? So it's not a stale process. We have to continue to find a way to be competitive, attract these applicants, but then once we have them, we've got to be able to retain them. So we've got to keep working at it. And so we're doing that with our employee recognition programs. We're doing that by, we allow flexible work schedules when that's available, just trying to get a better understanding of what this workforce needs and wants. And so we do that by way of not only exit interviews to find out why people are leaving, we're also now conducting what we call stay interviews, find out what's working, what's not working, so that we can try to fix it before they try to leave. So we're excited about it. We're definitely moving in the right direction. We thank you for your part in that, and it's made a big difference this past year.
Thank you, Director Sanchez.
Thank you. And I just had one question. So you mentioned it's a yearly update as required by the state law. So we just received the update now. So will we receive it again in May of 2026 at the end of the fiscal year? Is that really what you're thinking? Is it tied
It's
to that?
supposed to be before the budget is adopted. So it will be sometime in April, May, June, just depending on when the budget is presented to you for adoption. So it'll be around next year.
Of next year. Okay.
Once a year.
Thank you. I'll see if there's any members of the public that would like to comment on this item. If so, we welcome you. Not seeing anybody, I will close the public comment and enable the council to provide their own comments. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Another example of good government. Look at us. Always exciting. I support the motion to receive the wonderful report.
Thank you. Councilmember Micah.
Yes, thank you and great work. I see you in social media. I repost again on the community fair on Saturday. The police and the fire department were there, recruiting from the community. So I see the efforts that you're doing, and I think is amazing. And I love the not the exit interviews, but the staying interview, what is working. So, and I know that we have a lot of challenges around housing, but yeah, I think you're doing a great work. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hill.
Yeah, thank you, Director Sanchez, for your report. You mentioned this in your report. I think foundational to this interim outcome, because this is, as you said, something that we have to work on continually. But I do think that the MOUs are foundational to how we got here. This equipped the departments to go out with the tools that they needed to attract folks. I think we need to continue to attract, but also retain. I do also think beyond compensation package that there are intangibles that I hope that the culture of the city will continue to attract and retain folks. So I'll just say from this dais, we continue to say, please come, please stay, but that we want you to work here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And great report. We love how the numbers have continued to improve and to staff up. And I know you did not report on, as it wasn't needed because we have lower vacancies of what services are not provided. And I do want to recognize all the staff that showed up during those lean times, which were really, it was kind of a COVID halo as folks changed where they worked and how they worked. And the staff that was here and that was here even prior to that, we just really owe them so much gratitude. And I want to appreciate the city manager's office, Assistant City Manager Robinson Pignon for all the work that you did around the negotiations, Assistant City Manager Stepanski for the support in that. As Councilmember Hill said, having the council and the community stretch to retain our first responders as well as all of the labor bargaining groups is critical to having such a great report, because we know all the jurisdictions out there, including ones that neighbor us, are trying to hire our people away. So thank you for recognizing that it's an ongoing process, and we look forward to an equally great report in a year. So thank you, Director. And I will have an motion on this end.
Move the City Council receive the staff report providing an update to the City of San Rafael's vacancy rates in compliance with Assembly Bill AB 2561.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Councilmember Eden Scalati.
Hi.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 4-0. Before we adjourn the meeting, we have open time for public expression. This is comments from the public on any topics not on tonight's agenda. If you'd like to address the council, now is your time. Not seeing anyone this evening. Thank you all for a great meeting, and it is adjourned.